Okay, so welcome everybody. Hello, my name is Lania Watkins. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm currently the program director at the amazing Oakland LGBTQ Community Center. We are the first ever LGBTQ center in Oakland. Before we get started, I definitely want to, set the tone with doing a land acknowledgement, and I'll read this. We acknowledge the land and labor of the Ohlone people, whose connection to the land we remember, and whose presence, past, present, and fostering learning through generation and dissemination of knowledge. We acknowledge that the land we are meeting on today is the original home of the Ohlone land. So I am in Oakland and I am currently presenting to you all from the Ohlone land. So today I want to share just a brief history of the center and how we've been able to leverage some of our opportunities to bring in more resources for our community.
Hi, Lania, would it be okay if we were to do an interpretation announcement?
Oh, I'm going along. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. It will be 60 seconds. I'll do it first in Spanish and later in English. Buenas tardes a todos. Mi nombre es Flavia. Estoy trabajando con mi colega Telesh y también con Gloshanda y también con Lex para proveer justicia lingüística. Este taller será en inglés con interpretación de señas americanas, que pueden verlas si quieren leer interpretación de señas americanas, y también va a ser interpretado simultáneamente al español. Si quieren escucharlo en español, pueden encontrar el setting, la herramienta para escucharlo, opriman abajo en donde dice interpretación de idiomas y luego opriman español. El taller va a ser más que nada en inglés, pero probemos eso como un servicio adicional. Si tienen alguna pregunta acerca de esto, déjenos saber en el chat. Si ustedes quieren ver el idioma de señas americanas, también pueden hacerlo por medio de la pantalla. Gracias. Good afternoon, everyone. Now, in order to establish language justice, this workshop will be primarily in English, and we will be providing American Sign Language interpretation and Spanish interpretation happening live simultaneously. I'm working alongside my colleagues Telesh, Gloshanda, and Lex. Now, if you would like to access the American Sign Language interpretation, you can see our dear colleagues interpreting through the little boxes in the screen. If you would like to access the Spanish simultaneous interpretation, please click at the bottom. There is an icon that says Spanish interpretation, and it says interpretation, then click on it, and then you will find the language. And a friendly reminder to everyone speaking today, everything you say will be simultaneously interpreting into American Sign Language and Spanish. So if you can please be mindful of your pace, that way we can keep up with everything being shared. Thank you.
Okay.
Good. Thanks.
Cool. I do talk fast, so I'll focus on that today. So welcome everyone again. So the center opened in 2017. It's the very first, like I mentioned, in Oakland. And today, what I'll be doing is going over our history and how small funding opportunities help build out to where we are today, where we now have the capacity to provide funds for folks who want to access mental health providers, and we'll cover the costs for them, but also in their case management or wellness navigation, as we call it, they're able to identify the therapists on their own. We don't house therapists on campus, but we definitely coach our clients on how to identify therapists that work for them. So our center opened in 2017, and in this wonderful building you see on the picture, we have one office space, and the organization was started by Joe Hawkins and Jeff Myers, two close friends who are African-American gay men who saw the need for a center in Oakland. For many years, we've been a shadow city, meaning that there was San Francisco there and Oakland here. And folks would escape Oakland to go to San Francisco to open up and be their true, authentic selves. So they would go over to the city to party and come back over to the Oakland side. So that's still true today, where San Francisco receives more funding than we do. So our clients are oftentimes, fluid in services, San Francisco, Oakland. And, we have nothing against it. Our folks are creative and resourceful and do, what's best for them. So when the center opened, we spearheaded with so many volunteers. So we had volunteers, nurses, doctors who really believed in the idea of Oakland having its own center. So in that, we started getting, folks, hey, I want to facilitate a support group. I have capacity to provide this level of support. So I'm going to click down into, let me see our site. So we now also have the capacity to provide sexual health services in our clinic. But again, the center started mainly with the support groups. So there was NA group, gender not non-binary groups. There were so many support groups. And we, at one point, was acknowledged by the American Psychological Association in 2018 for our large gamut of affinity groups, which was really, really great. And out of that, we built a partnership with the Pacific Center in Berkeley, who was the closest, LGBTQ center, on this side of the Bay. And they, we did some consulting with them, and they were able to show us how to, host and facilitate workshops with community. They also trained us on how to do a training for folks that wanted to facilitate. So that was really great. And out of that opportunity, we built a rapport with the city of Oakland, where we were funded to do a small youth program. So for all these years, so 3 years, we had no funding, none whatsoever. It was solely volunteers. And we began to create a safe space for youth, and youth began to drop in, youth began to come in and give input. It was just their safe space. So we only had 2 staff for a very long time, until we had an opportunity to apply for funding through CDPH to provide a sexual health clinic. So out of that birthed Project Empowerment. It birthed Hey Queens, our trans women support group. So we were able to take one opportunity, pull it into another opportunity, and create something really big. So under Project Empowerment, participants who are gay, bi, trans, and African American and Latinx, they were able to access housing resources. They were able to access individualized case management and service navigation. So all of these are services that we, provide at the center, and we're super proud of our support groups, because that's where we started. We just had the capacity to have one room that community members could switch off and facilitate different workshops, and it was really great. We saw between 2017 and 2020, we saw over 400 LGBTQ individuals that just came in for support groups. Nothing was funded. It wasn't staff. It was all volunteer. And through those opportunities, we were able to, collect some basic data, but also have a base to say, hey, we're seeing community, and we will, at one point, we want to build our capacity to provide an umbrella of services. So these here are a lot of our groups. Most of the groups fell off during COVID. It was so much going on at that time. We were able to use funds that we got from Citibank to keep over 400 LGBTQ community members housed between 2020 and 2022. So these are all of our support groups, and all of these groups were spearheaded by volunteers. Most are online, some are in person. We now have some in person, some online, and it's just a base that we're so proud of here at the center. We are now receiving funds from Elevateu, California, where our youth program has grown tremendously, just based off the one opportunity through Oakland Fund for Children and Youth, and also the support groups that we were able to have here. So when I shared with Mandy that I wanted to lead this conversation, I was brainstorming and thinking, I was like, I don't want to do a huge fancy presentation, but I want to talk about what we did, and I want to hear about what you all have done or what you're interested in doing, and definitely give some pointers on how to, build your capacity to serve community. Oftentimes, we get discouraged if we write a grant and then it's turned down, and then it's just like on to the next. But definitely, if that may come up for anyone, I would love to have some dialogue about that and what that could look like. So here we are today. Not only do we have the capacity to, still host the support groups, we have our rental assistance program that we have from private funding and Citibank, wellness service navigation. We now have a recovery service program where we wrote a grant to Cal CRG. We were denied 2 times. And the third time, by the third time, we had built our capacity. We saw the people, we showed that we have the capacity and the knowledge to serve and provide those services, and we were approved. So Rainbow Recovery provides an array of services for specific for LGBTQ community members in Oakland. And individuals apply online, and a wellness coordinator reaches out to them to see what their needs may be. And under this program, individuals can access individualized case management, services, coordination, crisis mental health support. And we're building out now a support group for individuals who are teetering between recovery and not being ready. So there's oftentimes settings for community members to go, like the NA groups, if they're sober and they're trying to work on that goal. But what we hear from community is that they want a space where they can hear, share their journey and learn from other folks. Just the normalcy around relapsing and getting back into care. So that program is going super amazing. It's fairly new. And what's really great that we take pride about under this is that they have access to therapy. It's not a house therapist here. It's whatever therapist that they want to see. And again, we spend time in the sessions with them, educating them on how to identify a therapist that works for you and not just taking what's given to them. So if you may have a session with a therapist and it just doesn't work, and that's okay. So we coach them on tools to, be able to speak up and say, this isn't working for me. I want to try something different. And that's a fairly new program for us. And one other thing I want to, expound on is that if a person comes in through one program, they may qualify for another program. For instance, Project Empowerment. The huge components under that grant are, access to a sexual health clinic, HIV testing, PrEP service, rental assistance. But that individual may also be struggling with their addiction. So they're able to also be enrolled under Rainbow Recovery. So the ultimate goal is to cover all the 8 dimensions of wellness, and that folks take care of their spiritual, their physical health, their mental well-being, all those things if they want to get back into the workforce. The goal is to focus on the whole person and just not, the HIV, which we oftentimes see, just historically, HIV has been well funded, and they have a model that works for some people and may not work for others. Another piece that we pride ourselves on is that we don't facilitate an HIV support group because we want to open it up. We want you to be able to go to, support group to learn about financial planning, to talk about, your experiences of being a trans individual. So definitely we open that up and not just narrow it down to HIV, because it's not just about the HIV, it's about the whole person. Strategy. I thought of 4 areas that I've seen, and I've worked through myself, and also as we're, just thinking about applying for certain grants, like what is going to stand out and really, be the standout story for us to be approved, or like what do we really want them to hear? So oftentimes we do a needs assessments for our community members. We did a huge one when we first got funded by CDPH, just seeing what the needs were around sexual health in community. And that's important to have that data and to talk, to funders about the assessments that you've done in the past and why you are that number one or to get the funding. I personally find that monthly reporting and the data that you can pull from that, like what's working, what's not working, it's so important because it helps you tell a story to funders. Cross-training staff, I strongly believe in the cross-training of staff. Not only is it beneficial to the organization, but that individual person as well, because you never know who may come in the door to get services, and you want your staff to be cross-trained and have the capacity to, maybe screen them from HIV, screen them for, if they need help around recovery services. And it's so much knowledge around, substance use and HIV and just life stuff that you want your staff to be, trained on. I find that building strong MOUs are powerful because not every opportunity or funding opportunity that may come up that you qualify for, you may get. But when you build strong MOUs with other strong organizations that are doing the work, it's just great because you'll have the capacity to refer clients over for those services, or if funding opportunities come up, you all can partner and write a grant together. So I'm a huge firm believer in those things. So I want to open it up. I want to, have some open dialogue about this and really talk about some of the experiences of folks in the room, in the space. I want to open up. I want to see some faces and really have, some conversation about this. Again, I come to you from just a lot of work experience. I've been in the field like 16 years now, I think. I started off as a peer and have always been intrigued about what can we do to help community? How can we, stretch our funds, and how can we, keep those relationships after funding, funding streams and grants are over? How do we keep those relationships up and, stay connected? So I want to open the space up. We can have some open dialogue. I really, I just want to hear from you all. I'm sure that there's some seeds that I can share and you can share some seeds with me. I feel like, if I bring some knowledge to the table, I would love to hear what you have to put on the table. We can just share and just have open dialogue, even if it's some experiences, if you were denied a grant, what that may have felt like and looked like for you all. Because we've been denied several that we knew that we're doing the work, and it's like, how dare you? But what does that really look like, and what does it feel like? So can take our time. I just want to open a space and have some dialogue about that.
Hey, Lania, I was wondering, you guys have like a physical space, but do you have any tips on like grants when you don't have a physical space and you're just not there yet? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you. So that's a really great point. So I shared early on that our first funding opportunity came from Oakland Fund for Children and Youth. It wasn't a huge grant, and mind you, we had one office and we had a community room and a cafe. And the funding that we got was able to staff the one staff person. But after we received that funding, we had an opportunity to, kind of take over the whole building space. So we did. But the one tip I would say, if you have a good rapport with one of those shared workspaces, though, and some funds, those are good. That's something that we tried. We're about to end a partnership because we got more funding to expand our youth program. But those spaces are awesome to rent. I would say if you built a strong MOU with any organization, they may have extra space that you can use. Probably do a barter situation, but definitely like we're building the MOUs. You never know what those understandings may be. It may be sharing the space, those types of things. So yeah.
Thank you.
So for like 3 or 4 months, we used a place called Oak Stop for our youth because our center we had grown so much that and the clinic is going several days a week. We wanted the youth to have their own space, so we did use that strategy of using a rental office space.
Awesome. We also have a comment in the chat. We felt that. How dare you? Yeah, I think we know that feeling.
Yeah. And it's like just what I've learned, like, the data tells a story. And there's a couple times we have a fearless CEO. Joe is so amazing because there were times that grants were denied and he called them out. Okay, hey, so this may have been my second time writing for this. Why are we being denied? So he'll set up a meeting and just have a real open conversation, like what can we do differently, and what's your process of going over the grant and approving them, what have you. That's super important, and encourage you all to try that. So they close one door, he's like, okay, you close the door, just respectfully, like what can we do differently, what's missing, how can we up our game? So
that's good advice.
Oh, okay. So thank you for that question. So we got our biggest grant in 2019, right when the pandemic hit. It was crazy. And I came on board in 2020. And yeah, it was a lot. It was definitely a lot at the time. So it was like 2 years until we got our, our largest grant. And that wasn't easy. Just when you have allies that believe in your work, those people can speak for you behind the scenes. And that was another situation. We had actually wrote, I was volunteering during that time. We had wrote for funds from Gilead, which is a pharmaceutical company. And it was literally the same grant we wrote to them that they didn't approve, and we wrote it to CDPH and they approved it and they were able to fund it. So that was like a 4-year, $4 million grant opportunity. We're in year 3 now. A lot of times when you feel like those side reports and conversations and, collaborations really don't, I wouldn't say don't mean much, but those people, they'll have your back and they're speaking you up in rooms where you're not. And those opportunities may come up. So it's all in the MOUs, it's all in, I feel it's a lot in like who you know behind the scenes. So I believe you all saw the flyer. So we are in the next 2 weeks are going to have Pride Fest, which is Oakland's Pride Festival. It's not Oakland Pride. And that's something that we're part of. We are sponsoring some of the entertainment. And we definitely take pride in having a space for our community to come out and celebrate. So that's something that we're working on too. Yeah. But I want to hear who's in the room and what brought you into this space. Don't be shy.
Hey there, it's great to see you again, Lania.
Hi, great to see you.
Yeah, I know that we've been working together recently, but we really didn't get a chance to see the work that we do and what we do across the state, right? The reason I came to your talk was because I'm really interested in learning a little bit more how QU Foundation is in the similar boat in Los Angeles with, we just got a space that we're working with an autonomous group, right? We've been around for quite a while and we formed a lot of partnerships throughout the city of Los Angeles, from Grand Park through the Contemporary Arts Institute in Los Angeles and, cultural centers. So we have all these great partnerships, but I'm still at the point, well, how do we leverage everything, right? How do we package something and get the support from MOUs, for example, or external MOUs, right? And really be able to start getting funding to get staff, for example. We're all volunteer too still. So, and not all grants obviously fit a certain box, right? We have to, whether it's an HIV funded thing or a hepatitis C with Gilead, or you know what I mean? It's just like all these little pockets, and how do we are able to leverage, one decent thing, right? For our small organization.
That's a really great question, really great point. So some of our fillers, we have private funders that donate quite a bit. We do like a seasonal funding, donation campaign, like Season of Giving during the holidays and Season of Pride. So it's several different campaigns we do throughout the year. And we definitely don't hold back with reaching out to corporate organizations. Like we have some funding from Amazon that help us fill in the blanks. Citibanks help us start our rental assistance program. So building your capacity to reach out to corporate funders, that you feel comfortable working with is huge, because it definitely helps us fill in and have the capacity to leverage our big funding, which is more restrictful. So I definitely, want to share, just advise that build your capacity to like do a seasonal campaign. And then also, reach out to Amazon, Clorox, some of those big corporate individuals that's making all the money from off our community, and see how they could support. Rainbow, I see your hand. Rainbow
Hi,
Pride.
hi. This is Gustavo from Rainbow Pride Youth Alliance.
Hi, Gustavo.
Yeah, we were. Well, I was wondering, it sounds like you guys have experienced a lot of cool and amazing growth in your capacity. I guess my question is how have you managed that growth? Because I know growth can be painful, awkward, and frustrating. By your reaction, I feel like we can feel. I can feel that. I can feel that laugh. How have you managed to kind of manage that growth, communication within your team, and how do you manage that transition?
That's a great question, and I really appreciate that. It's really great, and I appreciate it. It's been amazing and amazingly overwhelming, and just being transparent. But we're doing some more infrastructure shifting and changing. Just from what I know, is the best way to manage that is to make sure you build out a strong middle management team. So for instance, I'm a program director. It's always good to have 2 positions above my role, I would say, to help manage some of the day in and day out tasks associated with it. Just having a strong team, having a team of experienced individuals. I know we oftentimes want to give folks opportunities, but you definitely want to bring in people who have strong administrative skills. You want people who have done the work, and have other skills to bring to the table. It's been a lot, and what we do is we allow staff to have wellness days. So for instance, in my role, I have a laptop. So if I'm not having a good day or what have you, and I just need to be in my home, in my space, that's fine. We have the capacity to work from home. We use Microsoft Teams, which is amazing. And it's just right at the point, right on the dot communication, where you're able to communicate to who have, emails nowadays. It's who's gonna wait on, the emails, So using certain tools to help manage it is huge. And I feel like training and staff quarterly meetings are so important, just to keep a good rapport with the team and saying, hey, what's working, what's not working. Just keeping those lines of communication, but definitely putting as many tools in place to help manage it.
Thank you. I really appreciate the answer.
Thank you.
Yeah. We also had a comment in the chat from Jacob. Was hoping to find out where to get grants to pay individuals to conduct training.
That's a good question. I have my information at the end, and definitely you and I, we could talk offline, but I can share just from what I've seen for the past 8 months is that funders seem to be pretty open for you to write in to the grant a line item for trainings. So that's one strategy. Another strategy is, building out MOUs. If organization is good at, work with a specific community, or if it's youth, and it's good to touch base with them to see what's their capacity. Could they provide training, or they may know some resources. So I would say, don't be bashful, don't be shy. You should just ask and communicate. Hey, we're doing this. Do you know any trainers, or do you know of any resources? And definitely ask. Yeah. And most funding opportunity, most funders have TA written into the grant. So there's technical assistance that you can get. They may do webinars, like we're funded through Elevateu, California, and at least once every other month, there's a really great in-service about something, and those are very helpful. They also hold a space for everyone that's funded to kind of talk and strategize. Those opportunities are helpful as well.
We have another comment in the chat from Anna. I work on a Department of Justice grant with the Office on Violence Against Women, and they provide TA expertise across the country and many webinars for the public, for example. It's a good resource.
Yeah. We just got small funding from Department of Violence Prevention. And I can already tell like this is going to be interesting because of the city's strategy on what falls under violence. We're the first LGBTQ organization to receive funding. So I can see there's going to be a lot of good that comes out of this, and there's going to be a lot of teaching from us to them about real violence that happens within our community. The funding was specifically to help with our youth space, to create a safe space. So this is going to be definitely interesting, working with them. So that's great to hear as well. Anything else, anyone?
I would love to know how you figure out which corporate sponsors to approach. Like, I feel like you could just how do you brainstorm that? Or do you talk to people who already have contacts at those corporate sponsors?
That's a good question. That saying is who you know. Most of our volunteers were well connected, like with Clorox and Amazon. So those are like some small ends that we're able to leverage and build a rapport with. Oftentimes these organizations have like a website, and they often do, season the giving and sharing. And I would say for instance, if it's Amazon, there's a way to reach out to their corporate office and say, hey, this is what we do. We'd love to have a conversation, and see how you can support us. So, a lot of times it's who you know. You may know somebody that have an in.
And to follow that up, Anna's asking, how do we continue to receive support from corporate sponsors if you've already received some funds, like knocking on their door again, stewardship in parentheses?
Okay. I would say when you have an opportunity to meet with them, in that initial meeting, you can talk about what's the likelihood we were able to get continued funding. I think just having that conversation early on and letting them know, how can we stay connected? Sometimes they give you money, and then, they try to fall back, and you're like, oh, well, we need some hygiene kits. What about this? What about that? So there's different ways to kind of, build that conversation when you get to meet with them the first time.
Rainbow Pride has their hand up.
Okay.
Hi, Mayor Pratt again. We were wondering actually, like, how do you reconcile, like, I guess, like, what, I think going back to the corporate, like, sponsorship kind of like question, how do you reconcile, like, what money to take and what not to take? Because, I don't know, for example, like Amazon for us is like a little bit tricky because a lot of our community partners, we're in the IE, have a very like anti like Amazon approach to it. And so it's like, how do you bridge like how do you bridge like that divide where like your partners are against it, but it might be beneficial for your like your program? Yes. Like, how do you reconcile that? Yes.
That is a good question. I can speak from my perspective. I know for us, we approached them with an ask. The first time we asked Amazon, actually Amazon had reached out to us about donating. It wasn't money, it was something, it was like, hygiene kits, what have you. And our response was like, can we have a bigger conversation and tell you our story and what we do in community? So we used that strategy, went through step by step how we started and what we did. And I don't know if it was something in that conversation, in the presentation, where they were like, oh, they have the capacity, we're a multi-million-dollar organization. And they believe in what we did, what we do. And they funded us. I know there's certain corporations that we don't deal with, but I know like Amazon has been one that has been their donations have been fruitful. So, and it's allowing us to continue to do the work with youth and create a safe space. I just feel like if it's in your heart and like, I don't believe, in what these folks stand for, you don't have to ever force yourself. But I think in our situation where we were able to take a step back and say, hey, you want to give us this, but let me tell you what we want, what we need, and then maybe we can negotiate there. And that strategy has been very helpful. Our CEO, Joe, is amazing, who used that strategy. Like, you want to give us these pennies, but hold on, I want you to really see, hear the data, look at our site, come visit, and have a conversation about it.
Thank you for that honest answer. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, because they want to. Oh yeah, I helped. I'll never forget. We my first year here, we did a Thanksgiving event, and we have a small pantry, and Blue Apron. No, this was the summertime for Pride. Oh, Blue Apron wanted to give us some food, and they wanted to do all this stuff. So they delivered the mini packets. You know how with Blue Apron, you have like the apple cider vinegar and you have the honey. They delivered boxes on boxes of that kind of stuff and crates of pasta. And I'm like, my boss is like, Lania. I was like, no, I was under the impression that they were going to give us, So that was 1 year. So I learned from that, be specific. So that taught me come up with a strategy for the holidays. So this past December, I asked them specifically for what we want. I want 100 meal boxes put together. I asked them, and I did tell them, like, you sent us some materials last time that we weren't able to use, and they felt bad, but when they made up for it, they tried to give us all their little leftovers, but then I was like, no, and folks loved it because it was like 3 meals in each box, and folks, we gave out 100 on a Saturday right in December, and it was really great. Yeah.
In the chat, Jacob wants to know, does anyone have any templates, tricks, or tips in going for corporate sponsorships? I've been doing the cold call method and it's not the most fruitful.
Yep. Be specific in your ask. Someone type that in the chat. Jacob, you and I, let's connect. Let's talk. we could, I can just share some ideas. Yeah, because after a while, a cold call, it doesn't work. And it's oftentimes, figuring out who's the right go-to and what's the best approach to reaching the company. Yeah, that's true. A lot of corporations get a lot of requests. Yeah. Anything else? That's a really great point, Anna. Find philanthropic events in your area, like for resource generation. That's a really great idea.
Is resource generation like an organization, or are you just talking in general about resource generation? I guess I'm confused from the chat.
Anna, can you explain that for us? Are you still there?
Anna's having connectivity issues.
Oh, okay.
So maybe they could drop it in the chat. Oh, it's a nonprofit organization. Okay, gotcha. That looks really cool. That's a great resource.
Thank you. We got a lot of time left.
I mean, I guess I could ask you, like, so as part of the BI+ community, we have to really fight to prove there is a need before we can even get to the ask. And that's one of the unique challenges that we have, because you don't just look at us and it's not an issue like homelessness where you go, yeah, they need help, So I guess, how do you tackle that extra step when you have so much stigma and people don't even think your community like has needs?
Yeah. Thank you for that. That's a huge point. So when we wrote our Project Empowerment grant, which is currently our largest grant that funded our sexual health clinic, wellness navigation services, prep services, what have you. One of our line items was like capacity building with ETR, who for the past 3 years has been helping us tell our story. They came in and doing individual interviews with staff, hearing the staff stories, hearing client stories. So using that strategy of putting a story, putting a face, not a face or a voice behind a story and the need has been really helpful. Our website is like phenomenal. There is like different video recordings there. We're still working on a project to tell our story and eventually post it on our website. So I just think, well, from what I know and what I'm learning is that a lot of corporations will go to your website and like, what can I get out of this website? What is this website going to tell me? And kind of back up the need. So like different audio stories it's really a big thing nowadays when you approach organizations for funding. So I hope I was able to answer that question.
No, that's great. I mean, we just got our website redone and we have like over 110 videos of people telling their stories. So we've got that stuff. It's just, I guess, getting people to look at it.
So look, yeah. I think it's that, and then I don't know, like whatever opportunities that you have that come up where you're able to, present and table at different events. I think that's big too.
Yeah, I do feel like COVID really screwed that up for us because we couldn't do anything in person for like 2 years.
Yeah, I believe we're in the same cohort, Nicole.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was like I just came in and then I'm learning and then me looping through my learning curves. And it was just like it was so much. COVID really put a big dent. And we're trying to make up for it now. We lost so much time.
Yeah, just rebuilding that constituency through in-person events is just like gonna take a while.
It is. Yep. Yeah, that's true.
We have some great comments about the Imperial Court
Mm-hmm.
from Carolina. How there's a lot of chapters that hold fundraisers with special bequests to community organizations. Imperial Court System is oldest continuous LGBT organization in the U.S. Original chapters were started in SF in Portland, Oregon in 1965. You can Google Imperial Court System.
Thank you.
I know we all have the food coming, but come on, this is a great resource here. Let's ask more questions.
It's all good. Let me see. I was trying to. How do I do this? Folks, have my information. You can always reach out. I know sometimes, bashful. You don't feel comfortable speaking in front of so many people. It's fine. Yes. That's a really great idea. Anna Bernal, I think we need to think about funding sources we could share, collaborate on, or review grant proposals like peer review. That's a great strategy too. And one other thing that worked, so we actually did we applied for Project Empowerment, which is a sexual health clinic and PrEP service navigation. The way the RFP flowed, it was as if it was just for African American, gay, bi, and trans individuals, but we wrote in Latinx community because the HIV numbers are like high, and they approved it. Oftentimes you'll see a funding opportunity, a grant opportunity, and you see a trend happening, and we had the data to back it, so we were able to, write for what we wanted, and we got it.
That's a good suggestion to revise it if it's not. It's not saying what you needed to.
I have a question. This is hard. I know we often talk about like building, like, you know, getting more grants to like sustain other programs and stuff, but are there any systems in place, would you say, like to also be mindful of capacity within the organization? Like, I know you mentioned like you got a pretty big grant a couple years, but was there any like systems you put in place to ensure that like your staff was also supported with the new opportunities of funding that might come in every now and then, or any suggestions you have there for smaller orgs?
That's a great question. I wouldn't say that we put anything in place specifically for that. I would just only suggest if a grant opportunity comes up and you want to write for it, at that point, you begin to strategize and kind of pull it apart. Like, what would this look like if we were to get this based off our capacity now? And then what should our capacity look like if we were funded? That's a really great point, and that's like an ongoing thing. I'm still a firm believer of a cross-training strategy where you know, there's someone focusing on, you know, staff trainings, specifically staff wellness and self-care, you know, being a top of the priority list. But definitely, you know, if you see an opportunity, you know, it could be an activity. Okay, let's pull this apart. So this is, you know, 3 years of funding, is funding these positions. What would that look like in addition to what we have? And how soon is our existing funding gonna expire? You know, definitely encourage you to pull it apart, pull that whole idea of like, okay, we want to build our capacity, but what is that going to really look like, and what is it going to take, you know, to be successful if funded? Was that helpful?
Yeah, that just makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good idea, Nicole. Creating a working group for anyone in here who wants to share potential funding resources. I'll be down. I'm not as in tune with the funding. You know, I'm not the person here that kind of looks for funding, but they, you know, may come my way. But I love like the idea of strategy. Just from my experience, I would love to be part of that, to talk about strategy.
All righty, well, it seems like we're kind of dying down here as far as presentation goes, but Lania, could you put your email in chat so folks know how to contact?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, well, thanks so much for joining, everyone. We're going to end a little early, but please remember to join our general session, which starts back up at 2:30. So you take the time to use the restroom, have a drink of water, go outside, stretch a little bit, and then we'll rejoin at 2:30. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank
That was
you.
wonderful.
You did great, Lania.
Thank you, Kayla.